folder.
We are almost ready. Someone else. Good morning. Thank you. Welcome to the Treasure Coast Unitarian Universalist Congregation in Stuart, Florida. Today is October 15th, I think, 2023. I'm Janet Grote, your worship associate today. We are a welcoming congregation. We welcome people of all gender identities, ethnicities, ages, and backgrounds. YouTubers, hi. If you are comfortable and would like to be put on our email list, go to tcuuc.org to sign up to get our emails. Did everybody remember to silence their cell phones? Visitors, if you are comfortable, please step up to the microphone and introduce yourself, only if you're comfortable. Okay. For announcements, see the printed order of service and the newsletter for details. Today at 12:15, we will have the memorial service, a celebration of life for our longtime member, Yashi Nizawa. If you didn't get to know Yashi in the last few years, I bet you know Anne. Come celebrate a soul we love. Join us the first and third Tuesdays at Stewart's Veterans Memorial Park downtown at noon for our brown bag lunch. That will be this Tuesday. And a big thanks to those who helped with the service, Jackie Robbins and Judy Bajors for the music, our greeter, Pat Tosney, and haven't picked our ushers yet. We'll let Bob do that. Our host, Karina Poloni, and our tech support, Rachel Valentino. And for the coffee setup, Jackie Buckley. Today, our member, Professor Stan Forrester, along with our Reverend Bob, is in the pulpit. Stan will be doing a sermon. Stan's early exposure to the biblical story, the parable of the talents, convinced him of two things. The first was that God, in his wisdom, had not been overgenerous when handing out the gift of faith. The second was that the one evident gift which he had been equipped, the ability to think, should not be hidden under a bushel. Stan has worked in home construction, served on submarines, operated a nuclear power plant, volunteered as an EMT, managed a tax office, analyzed high energy experimental data, and earned a doctorate. The one thread that runs through all of this is that Stan is a teacher and has been since the Navy put him in front of a classroom in 1987. He is also the father or stepfather of 4 amazing human beings and has only one left who needs to be taught to drive. Here's our prelude. Oh, thank you, Jackie. We're going to light the chalice now. Fire consumes and casts a bright light. May our chalice flame consume our regrets for the past, our fears for the future, and our worries about today. May it light for us a path of joy and peace. These words, which I have blatantly corrupted, are based on the words of Reverend Gretchen Haley. Let's be gender neutral in our language, if we can. Let's be open to our own take on God. Today, God is running late, trying to find their seat, scanning the room for someone they know or someone they don't know. God can't stop thinking about the James Webb Telescope and the possibility that time is not linear, which God might have guessed. God can't stop thinking about the never-ending urgency of some upcoming election. The God of Israel is late for sure. In fact, he is lost. God is tired of the grief, tired of white supremacy and the warming of the oceans. God just wants to be present. Stop worrying about everything. We are present. Sing, breathe, laugh. God, your creation, our creation, is not yet done. Come, let us worship together. Now, for our first hymn, stand if you're comfortable to sing number 21, Beauty of the Earth. affirmation, speaking the first verse, and singing the second. Love is the spirit of this church, and service is its law. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another.
The responsive reading is number 440 in the back of the hymnal, 440, entitled From the Fragmented World, written by Philip Hewitt. From the fragmented world of our everyday lives, we gather together in search of wholeness. By many cares and preoccupations, by diverse and selfish aims, are we separated from one another and divided within ourselves. Yet we know that no branch is utterly severed from the tree of life that sustains us all. We cherish our oneness with those around us and the countless generations that have gone before us. We would hold fast to all of good we inherit, even as we would leave behind us the outworn and the false. We would escape from bondage to the ideas of our own day and from the delusions of our own fancy. Let us labor in hope for the dawning of a new day without hatred, violence, and injustice. Let us nurture the growth in our lives of the love that has shone in the lives of the greatest of men and women, the rays of whose lamps still illumine our way. In this spirit we gather, in this spirit we pray. And now we share our matters of joy, sorrow, concern, in the hope that you will know you have been heard and are supported. We ask that they be brief and personal, meaning not announcements. I guess you know that now. This is not personal, but I think we're all sharing the horror that's going on in the Middle East. And it seems like the horror is about to worsen. How are 1 million people to be sustained in the southern half of that tiny country? I don't hear of any supplies of water and food being taken there. How will they live? A nightmare just seems to promise to get worse. Are you going to be moving stones or what? Yes. Let's get on the... yeah, we move a stone for you, so we don't have to start yelling stone, stone at you. So anyway, that nightmare is in the news nonstop, and we just have to hope and pray for better than how it's looking now in Israel and in Gaza. Also, I would bring to your attention, Linda Shuey told me they can't be here today because they're heading to Brevard, North Carolina, because Linda's daughter Cheryl's husband's mother has been discovered with cancer, and so they're going to be with her for a couple days. So our thoughts and prayers with the mother of their daughter Cheryl. Also, Roger just informed me that Jack Cassidy called him to say that he fell and is hurting in several places. We don't know if he's at home or at the hospital. We will find out. But Jack Cassidy, I think, is going on 91, and we want him in better shape. Also, just to mention, today is our memorial for Yashi, whom we remember very fondly. And of course, we would embrace Anne as she's here for the wrapping up of their home and then going back to Hawaii. Yashi will be with us in our thoughts and memories for a long time. He was a keeper. Who else has a matter of joy or sorrow to compare? Come to the mic to share. Come to the mic or from your seat.
Yeah, good morning, everyone. My name is AJ, and good to be here this morning. And we were missing in action for a few weeks.
Yeah, closer to the mic.
Mary Ann and I were missing in action for a few weeks. Hey, I'm here today, Mary Ann. But I appreciate we had a few calls. Bob called us, and Bill called us, and then John gave us a call. And that was nice for people to reach out to us. But we had a few things going on, and we didn't say where we were. And again, it was just nice to hear from the church here. So thank you.
So long as you felt the love, that's all we care about, AJ.
Fred Dembowski. My grandson Jack, who I've spoken about over the years, who's severely autistic, is finishing up his associate's degree with a straight A average, and he's going to the University of North Dakota next year, and he just turned 24 years old.
Wow. Lots of pride there. Anyone? Okay, Barney.
It's not going to be really short, but so good morning. I'm Barney Miller Moore, and yesterday I turned the television off because I couldn't take it anymore, and I started digging through some things of my mother's, and I found a certificate of appreciation from when I was 15 and in boarding school, and tried out with that a fraternity was doing a talent hosting, and I didn't win, but I got a certificate of appreciation. It turns out that the fraternity was one that two of our sons later became affiliated with, and when I sent that information off to Ali, he wrote back and said, "Did you know that your granddaughter, Alicia, tried out for that very same talent hunt, but she won." So it made my day.
Judy?
I'm Judy Bajaris, and some of you may remember that last year I went out to Utah to try to help my cousin Mary, 89-year-old cousin Mary, after her son died suddenly of a heart attack, and that was fraught with all kinds of issues. But yesterday, her niece, her only heir really now, Diane, has flown out there from Houston because Mary's had a TIA, and my cousin, she's deteriorating. But it's a relationship that's been, there have been a lot of problems in that relationship, and Diane has been on the phone with me and texting with me a lot to get emotional support as she goes out there to help her her aunt Mary. So if you can please hold Mary and Diane in your thoughts, please, as they go through this difficult time. Thank you.
The Stubborn Bastards wanted me to thank you for the warm welcome that you always give our band, and so thank you very much again.
Okay, I'm going to start this off a bit funny. But these two decided to show off today and bring me here on a motorcycle. I had one of our family friends check if I had hat hair because of the helmet that I was wearing. But in all seriousness, the experience was very invigorating, and it's definitely very connecting. You have conversations on the road, which is a very strange thing, but it's just people, right? You get to see people going about their lives, and that's very, very interesting to me.
Anyone else?
My joy is that Friday the Stubborn Bastards sang a song from my youth, Caledonia, Caledonia, what makes your big head so hard? And I never thought I would hear that again in my life, so that was a really nice surprise. Can you move it for me?
Anyone else? And we always move one for people that we haven't said out loud, but all of us have people that we care about, worry about. This is for those. The meditation is from the back of the hymnal entitled Impassioned Clay by Ralph Helverson. Deep in ourselves resides the religious impulse. Out of the passions of our clay, it rises. We have religion when we stop deluding ourselves that we are self-sufficient, self-sustaining, or self-derived. We have religion when we hold some hope beyond the present, some self-respect beyond our failures. We have religion when our hearts are capable of leaping up at beauty, when our nerves are edged by some dream in the heart. We have religion when we have an abiding gratitude for all that we have received. We have religion when we look upon people with all their failings and still find in them good. When we look beyond people to the grandeur in nature and to the purpose in our own heart. We have religion when we have done all that we can and then in confidence entrust ourselves to the life that is larger than ourselves. Ralph Helverson. And now moments of silence. Spirit of Life, 123, we remain seated, we hum it once and then sing it once. Spirit of life, come unto me. Read in my heart all the stirrings of compassion. Blow in the wind, rise in the sea. Move in the keep saying, I hope that all who come here experience joy and generosity. And I also keep saying this is our offering time, so we need some of the generosity back. Thank you. Now we often have choral music, and Stan came up with a different kind of song that we're going to listen to on the wall, and then some stanzas will be there for us to sing. And I trust you'll catch the tune after you've watched the video first.
Okay, we're sending some love and fun out into the world with a little bit of a twist on Lord of the Rings. So let's go.
That's not Stan and me, incidentally. It's two other old guys.
When the world was begun, I danced with the moon and the stars and the sun. I was called from the darkness by the song of the earth. I joined in the singing and she gave me birth. Dance, dance, wherever you may be, for I am the Lord of the dance, said he, and I'll lead you all wherever you may be, and I'll lead you all in the dance, said he. I sleep in the kennel and I dance in the rain. I dance in the sun and through the weaving grain. And when you cut me down, do not think I am gone, for I am the dance and I still go on. Dance, dance, wherever you may be, for I am the Lord of the dance, said he, and I'll lead you all wherever you may be, and I'll lead you all in the dance, said he. We dance even slower as the leaves fall and spin, and the sound of the horn is the wailing of the wind, and the call of the hunter as he rides across the plain, while the horse sleeps till the spring comes again. Dance, dance, wherever you may be, for I am the Lord of the dance, said he, and I'll lead you all wherever you may be, and I'll lead you all in a dance, said he. The sun in the southlands, but the days lengthen fast, and soon we will sing for the winter that is past. I will live in you if you live in me, for I am the Lord of the dance, said he. Dance, dance, wherever you may be, for I am the Lord of the dance, said he, and I'll lead you all wherever you may be, and I'll lead you all in the dance, said he. Dance, dance, wherever you may be, for I am the Lord of the dance, said he, and I'll lead you all wherever you may be, and I'll lead you all in the dance, said he.
Are you going to play this while we try to sing it? All right. I think here we go.
She danced in the water and the wind was her horn. The lady laughed and everything was born. And when she lit the sun and gave it birth, the Lord of the dance first appeared on the earth. Dance, dance, wherever you may be. I am the Lord of the dance you see. I live in you and you live in me. I lead you all in the dance, said he. I danced in the morning when the world was begun. I danced in the moon and the stars and the sun. I was called from the darkness by the song of the earth. I joined in the song and she gave me the birth. Dance, dance, wherever you may be. I am the Lord of the dance you see. I live in you and you live in me. I lead you all in the dance, said he. The horn of the lady cast its sound across the plain. The birds took the notes and gave them back again. The sound of her music was a song in the sky, and to that song there is only one reply. Dance, dance, wherever you may be. I am the Lord of the dance you see. I live in you and you live in me. I lead you all in the dance, said he. The moon interfaces the tides of the sea, the movement of the earth and the seasons that will be. The rhythm for the dancing and the promise through the years that the dance goes on through our joy and tears. Dance, dance, wherever you may be. I am the Lord of the dance, said he. I live in you and you live in me. I lead you all in the dance, said he. Dance in the stars and the earth was raised. I dance in the pulse of the veins in your face. The dance is too great, no dance is too small. You look at me anywhere, for I dance in them all. Dance, dance, wherever you may be. I am the Lord of the dance you see. I live in you and you live in me. I lead you all in the dance, said he. Amen. Have a seat. I'm going to introduce you in a minute. Now, for some time, since I've learned that Stan was into science, I've been wanting him to share his thoughts with us. And then one day walking around here, I discovered that Stan has a promoter who shall remain anonymous. But she said to me, you know, my dad is pretty smart. He has that little thing next to his name. And I think the little thing she meant was PhD. So anyhow, I made Stan an offer, and he didn't refuse to share his thoughts on science and religion and to kind of dance us into it. Thank you, Stan. Welcome.
I do have a PhD, but there's also a DAD after that as well, which I am more proud of. Okay. Picture the scene. It's the summer of 1937, and a young couple are taking their evening walk near Cornell University. Passing out from the illumination of a street lamp, the couple stop to admire the stars. The young lady remarks on their beauty and on the wonder that no one knows why they shine. To which the young man responds, I do, and tonight I'm the only man in the world who does. Now that's either an amazing flex or there's something else going on there. It's 1937. The young man's name is Hans Bethe, a future Nobel Prize winner, and the young woman is Rose Ellwald. Earlier on this day, Hans Bethe had worked out the details of 2 nuclear reactions. that power, the two nuclear reactions that power the stars and that allow them to shine for billions of years. On this night, he has not yet had the opportunity to share the workings of the proton-proton chain, or the CNO cycle, with his peers. On this night, the model of energy production in stars exists only in his mind, and perhaps some hints on a blackboard in an office somewhere in Cornell. On this night, Hans Bethe did not write about this, but one can only imagine the joy of having had this glimpse into the inner workings of the universe, this thin theoretical wedge opening a knowledge of the life cycle of stars, galaxies, and even the universe itself. A glimpse granted to no other human being in history. The subject of today's sermon is science and religion. And I have to admit that 10 minutes after agreeing to give the talk, I was a bit troubled. Not only do these topics rarely have any point of contact in our modern world, but the contact they do have seems often adversarial. As a scientist, I know there are many systems which balance forces, opposing chemical reactions, predator-prey relationships that are necessary for a system to reach and maintain equilibrium. In other words, perhaps this is one such system where opposition is a prerequisite to balance. So my question is, are science and religion necessarily adversarial? There's also the danger that my words might be taken to represent the views of other physicists and scientists. What I say today are personal views, and it would upset me greatly if my words were someday attributed in some way that begins, scientists believe, or scientists say. Okay. The fact is that I've rarely spoken to other scientists about religion, and so I'm hardly an expert on the situation. On the one occasion I do recall, it was observed that there are actually very few atheists among scientists or physicists. Let's be specific, among physicists. An atheist is someone who's come to the conclusion that there is no God. Most physicists will have spent so little time considering the question that very few will have been able to reach a conclusion one way or another, and thus are excluded from the ranks of actually being atheists. Yet for myself, not just as a physicist, but a human being, a relationship with the divine is not optional. Thus, the nature of the relationship between science and religion is an important one to me. Science and religion are both part of the full spectrum of the human experience. Oops. An observation to which I will add this. The first application of a knowledge of fusion was not the hydrogen bomb, but rather a young man's attempt to impress his girlfriend. It doesn't get much more human than that. The hydrogen bomb is a matter of historical record. As to impressing Rose, we have no official account. I will only observe that Rose Elwald later became Rose Bethe 2 years later. So I think we can say with some confidence that the events of that night at least did no lasting harm to the young man's cause. At its foundation, science is a way of talking about the world. We observe, we think very hard about what we observe. We might even engage in experiments in order to confirm that what we saw is actually reflected in reality. To the best of our knowledge, we describe what we observe, we talk about the world. There are many different ways of talking about the world. Chemistry, physics, biology, philosophy, all seek to describe aspects of the human experience in the physical world, each within its own context. Each discussion utilizes specialized tools, the standard model of particle physics, the periodic table in chemistry, the good life in philosophy. Each has its specialized vocabulary and concepts that shape the practice of each discussion. In fact, it's best to think of each as a conversation for which it might take years of study in order before one can meaningfully contribute to the dialogue. The seeming exclusivity of the sciences is due in part to the fact that the flow of discussion changes, and the insights of outsiders might be kindly described as sometimes off-topic or using the language in unfamiliar ways. The best ways of talking about the world must be consistent with one another. They allow the holder of each to examine the evidence before them in different ways, to use different mental models, to hold different and complementary worldviews. There's even cross-fertilization, with ideas from one field contributing to a different field. What we don't allow is for these ways of talking about the world to contradict each other. Religion is also a way of talking about the world. Specifically, it's a human conversation about the fact that we inhabit a world and are filled with wonder and awe and tragedy and heartbreak. It tries to assign meaning and purpose to that condition. It tries to connect us each with each other and with something greater than ourselves. Science can open new vistas for human senses. From these vistas, we can draw inspiration and awe, but it cannot and does not touch on meaning and purpose. There are many questions about the human condition for which we have no consistent observational evidence. Okay? Lacking the tools of observation, hypothesis, and experiment, they can find no traction, and by themselves they offer no real leverage. It's up to us to assign meaning. If we start with the amazing insight that not only does the world make sense to the human mind, but that, amazingly enough, it can make sense, which is not necessarily a given. That's enough to begin to find purpose, for at least some of us. For a few of us, the simple joy of knowing and understanding, and perhaps a discovery, can be our purpose. I recently viewed a microscopic image of a paramecium. This is a very recent one for me. This species can but does not necessarily consume algae. Rather, this microorganism encases them in a special compartment. It's called a vacuole. Biologists have known for years that specialized organelles within a cell, such as mitochondria that produce energy, or chloroplasts that converts carbon dioxide, sunlight, and water to oxygen and sugar, each contain their own DNA. We know that this DNA is evidence of an ancient event, a captured microbe, and a symbiosis taken to the point where neither the host cell nor the visitor can survive without the other. Functionally, they have become a single species. But here I was witnessing under this microscope lens what was possibly the first step in that process. A simple symbiosis with two species, one providing protection, the other providing food. And this is when the pieces began to fall into place for myself. I was able to take a theory regarding problem solving from robotics, to wit, the ability to solve externally complex problems. For instance, navigating a path with blocks using analog circuitry had to be matched by an internal complexity. The internal complexity limited the problem-solving ability in the external world. This, for me, was a perfect analog which mirrored the necessary changes to the host's operating system, its DNA. It would allow it to transform from a simple eating machine to a host capable of nurturing another cell, capable of distinguishing food from friend. I was witnessing the simplest possible form of encapsulation that would allow the separation not just of an algae from the interior of the cell, but could be applied to the separation and segregation of other cell functions, the beginning of an internally complex cell. I saw this internal separation of functions granted a new level of internal complexity that could now be mirrored in the external complexity of differentiations between cell types. And thus, this could be the beginning of the differentiation of cells and tissue types, the beginning of complex cellular life. All this is well known to biologists. It's all old hat, nothing special, okay? But they were new to me, and so I felt that special joy of being able to connect what I knew to what I was seeing and put it together in a new way. There's a special joy to knowing and learning, to having some aspect of the universe revealed to me, however small, and paramecium are very small, for the first time. Science can also offer community and connection. And there's a caveat there. If you read read accounts of, say, the Manhattan Project or other scientific collaborations, and you read American or British authors, it's all very nice and civil and everything. Our Slavic colleagues, Russians and Ukrainians, tend to be a little more blunt, and they will cover more of the conflict. But in broad strokes, in 1940, Glenn Seaborg and others at the Berkeley Radiation Laboratory succeeded in isolating a new element called plutonium. After months of bombarding uranium with a particle accelerator, the lab had succeeded in isolating micrograms, a millionth of a gram of this new material. Glenn Seaborg described the event as isolating an element that the creator had not seen fit to include in the act of creation. That's an appeal. That's an appeal to wonder. How close then is this eureka moment, an insight into the operation of the universe, to a moment of revelation in which one is granted a glimpse of the work of a hypothesized creator into the mind of God? How close is it to feeling the connection with something greater than oneself? There's not only a connection with a higher power, but also with colleagues who share a purpose and a mission. The Doc Brown cliche, a lone scientist working in his basement, is a myth. Science doesn't happen in isolation, but rather in collaboration. We are connected with each other in search for insights, something this congregation may sympathize with. The Berkeley Radiation Laboratory, the site of Seaborg's discovery, was one such collaboration. It's a sprawling campus today, but the discovery was a well-staffed effort even back in 1940. The discovery of plutonium did not happen in isolation. Today, a physics collaboration will include institutions from dozens of nations and thousands of scientists from around the world. And it's not always smooth going, especially when you have scientists from nations which are literally at each other's throats working together. And they learn how to operate together. They invent tools to communicate. I believe it was 1989, Tim Berners-Lee published the first version of what would later be called the World Wide Web. And we can all take a look at how that's managed to connect us in both good ways and bad. But sometimes these things do leak out of the laboratory. Personally, returning to religion, I come from a religious background that insists that there is an inherent conflict between science and religion, between faith and reason. As I previously stated, I do not feel I was gifted with an overabundance of faith, nor were the earthly representatives of that particular tradition entirely inspiring of trust. But no one's ever a complete waste. You can always be a bad example. Okay? So I decided that if there was to be merit in the study of Scripture, then how much more merit was there to studying the remainder of his work, all of creation, the entire rest of the universe? And that was my purpose. Given the population from which my classes are drawn, I'm not alone. It's a funny observation that as a physics teacher, I often get more questions about religion than another teacher of my acquaintance whose field is philosophy. Students confronted with the overwhelming utility of the physical sciences can often become concerned about faith, especially if they come from a spiritual background that lays an exclusive claim to the truth. These are worldviews that can often be antagonistic towards science, scientific worldviews, and even the concept of evidence. I try not to argue against scientific worldviews, because I know that these objections are rooted in something much deeper. These are worldviews that often see themselves as under siege by other ways of being in the world. I try to reassure these students there are plenty of religious engineers and scientists, that religion and religious and scientific ways of talking about the world are not incompatible, that one can learn to move between these worldviews, and that each can have its place in our lives. If pressed, I'll speak about the joy of knowing, the connection I feel when I get a glimpse into the inner workings of the universe. That's often enough. Sometimes more is asked for. As a moral principle, I try never to take from somebody unless I can offer something in equal return, so I tread very carefully. Some lives are simple, and a literalist view of Scripture offers a comfort and a stability that I didn't choose for myself, but which I must, as a matter of principle, acknowledge as itself a valid choice. For those who need more, I offer a distinction between human knowledge and revealed knowledge. I present scientific knowledge as an imperfect human edifice constructed by humans, carrying human meaning and in pursuit of human goals at a particular time. Scientific knowledge is an edifice which must be remade in each generation. It's a body of knowledge that, given new evidence and observation, must be open to revision. Revealed knowledge, on the other hand, especially if it takes the form of Scripture, is often presented as eternal and perfect. In my view, that perfection necessarily means that it must carry meaning not only just for those who read it now, but for all time. It must carry meaning for human beings who live in different times, who talk about the world in different ways from how we talk about the world today. The meaning is not the same because the essential component, the receiver, is different. The meaning is something which human beings must struggle to understand. For those who are still troubled, I can offer that biblical parable of the talents. 3 servants, each presented with a quantity of silver called talents, a small block of silver. The first goes out and invests it and makes his fortune and returns and is praised. The second goes out and loses it all and again is praised. The third tries to play it safe and buries his talents under a bushel and is not praised. For these students, I ask, what does it mean to have been created with the ability to think and then instructed not to do so? I let them draw their own conclusion. My earlier reassurance is somewhat disingenuous. What I do not tell them is that the very act of learning to navigate these 2 different worldviews will destroy the exclusive claim to truth that seems to be foundational to all fundamentalist worldviews. This fact will become apparent soon enough, and that choice to back away is not something I will take from them. The choice must remain theirs. If I insist, as we put it, the right of conscience, if I insist on this for myself, I can do no less for my students. In the early 1990s, I went through a rough time, and yes, that's a euphemism. It was a time difficult enough that I decided to speak to a God I didn't believe in. I informed God that if he wanted me to continue, then he needed to provide a reason to do so, and he needed to provide it quickly. My prayer was answered. In one way of talking about the experience, in the context of science, I know that my own religious experience can be understood as a kind of software glitch. Under an enormous amount of stress, my endocrine system provided me with the chemical inputs I needed to carry on for another day. My nervous system supplied the visual and auditory details. In another way of talking about the experience, God did communicate with me and did so in a way that I could accept and told me to go study physics. So was I created by a divine being with the capability? Was I created by a divine being with the capability of receiving communications from that being? Or do I belong to a species that evolved the capability to experience something greater than myself? In the end, it's not an either-or situation. Both answers can be true, but the answer does depend on how you speak about it. Thank you.
We're going to sing.
No.
Go ahead. Thank you, Stan. My idea for today was that after this, we would have a Q&A time in the other room, and we will have that. It'll be abbreviated because we have a service for Yashi at 12:15. So it's kind of set up in the other room. After our closing hymn, we'll proceed to that, and then a half an hour later or so, those who want to will reassemble back here to remember somebody really special among us, Yashi Nozawa. 175, The Web of Life. Let's stand as willing and able. Celebrate the I'm going to close with these thoughts from our traditions that we draw upon as you use here on page 7 or in the back of your bulletin. Jewish and Christian teachings which call us to respond to God's love by loving our neighbors as ourselves. Humanist teachings which counsel us to heed the guidance of reason and the results of science and warn us against idolatries of the mind and spirit. Spiritual teachings of earth-centered traditions which celebrate the sacred circle of life and instruct us to live in harmony with the rhythms of nature. Go in peace, and let's gather in the other room for some Q&A with Stan, and then back in here for sharing thoughts and love for Yashi.